one. Basically,
Okay.
we just run up to either try to take the hill there or we go down the valley.
Okay.
They don't work out too well for us. Done just about everything on this map.
That looks different. Did they shift that map circle north?
Oh.
I meant west.
Okay, well, I'll do tier 6. Generally, you have a whole lot of options. Have 7 players. So, small map like Cliff probably have with tier 6, the problem with tier 6 is that you don't have like anything tanks. You only get 7 tanks, which don't have a lot of options to do anything. So the whole problem with tier 6 is you can't really afford to split your tanks up at all. That being said, a lot of what your actions you have to do at tier 6, pretty much keeping your tanks together. So like in this instance, pretty much all I would do is just take a whole bunch of T-37, well, T-37 Cromwells, but so basically, like Cliff, like at tier 6, low tier, since most tanks are fast, this is useless. Pretty much cuts you off from the entire battle. This is kind of useless, since nobody's going back here. And it's really easy to get fast capped on this map, with people running this route and up here. So if you play this backside, you pretty much just cap to a fast cap, and people just basically all I would do is if they don't have a super fast composition like a bunch of Cromwells and light tanks, I'd just push the line. Want as many Cromwells as you can because they have more armor and more hit points than light tanks, and being spotted's not really an issue. All you do is you just push your tanks down the 2 line and up here. If you run into a couple tanks here, you just keep driving up here and kill them on your way. It's pretty simple, and you'll kill what's ever there. One T-37 just drives up here and just checks this ridge. He'll get lights across here and see anything. And if they end up running up this way and down the side, this T-37 have side shots along the way. But this scout just has to be careful, so you can just bank ridge here to peek over and spot this. And by the time this scout gets here, you know pretty much immediately whether they're pushing down here, going this way, coming this way, or sitting in cap. or over there. There's like, those are the only options, and if you don't spot them, then they're either like down here, like no if and or but. So basically, you eliminate this whole section of the map right away, just with a simple move. Then you just push like one Cromwell out to here in that case, and then he can kind of see off this ledge. One Cromwell kind of comes out to here, usually just in case anything's coming around this way, and you can't really stack a whole lot of Cromwells. But if they're pushing a whole bunch of stuff this way, or they're if they end up pushing a whole bunch of tanks, let you know. They push a whole bunch of tanks along down this route towards your Cromwells, then this Cromwell would stay here with these guys. This Cromwell wouldn't push out. He'd stay here with these guys, and then you just use 7, come in behind and shoot them as they drive by. But a lot of tier 6 is just playing like with your one huge group as a force and having like an opposite flank scout. That's pretty much all tier 6 is. There's not a whole lot of strategy you can afford to do at tier 6 beyond that. And it's good to have mobility and view range and stuff and DPM because you can afford to get away with it. A map like Cliff, they can't camp, so you don't really need any heavies. If they're gonna camp in like buildings or whatever, then just drive your scout over onto cap with a Cromwell, and then you just set everyone up here for a firing line at this corner, and then there's nothing they can do, and you. So it's all just reactionary at tier 6. And this strat is also reversible from the other side. You just run your Cromwells down here and up, and then when Cromwell kind of comes, checks this side, and then your T7 runs up here, checks across, and you'll see them coming across. The only thing that might get away is if they push a whole bunch of fast tanks up this way, but your T-37 will probably spot right across here, and light, pretty much everything, maybe a light tank might get away, but that's about it. Tier 8. Having a whole bunch of tanks kind of gives you like 10 tanks. 3 extra tanks gives you a huge amount that you can play around with. So the nice part is it opens up a lot more strategies. So things you can do are I'll just put kind of a generic strat out.
User joined your channel. Hey, wake up.
But basically, again, this whole section's kind of useless. This is just kind of a reactionary composition that allows you to kind of flex and play with the map. This RHM is able to get shots across here, and view the cap from here. You park him right here, and then he also has shots up into this area and stuff. Kind of run your light tanks out and around the bump here, and up. If they have a really fast composition, you can almost bet that they're going to push like all their light stuff up this way. So then all I would do is run like one light tank to this deck and then run away, instead of all four. And then the other light tank just comes up this way, lights across, gets in here. The IS-3s just come up here and play this ridge on the bottom side. They can haul down and brawl. And then that way this lightweight will light everything coming up here for these IS-3s. So by the time you're pushing up, what's kind of happening if they're up and around this way, or if they're coming down this way. If they have a whole bunch of light tanks and fast stuff, then you can assume like this, and then you would just like one light tank here. And you'd have the rest of the lightweights kind of come out. Out around the bends, so they'd run around the cliff up and around this way, and then they'll see in here this light tank can kind of back off in the buildings, and he'll be able to see right across here, and then it gives him cover to retreat, and then the RHM can cover him, and then these, if they end up pushing on this guy, these lightweights can just take these here and that stuff. These IS-3s can come back to the ridges. They commit their whole team, and then this guy can just run to cap, kill already if they have it, whatever works.
User joined your channel.
Or you can take a couple lightweights and run to cap and counter cap if they push their whole way. That way, pretty much guarantee they can't make it back unless they have a whole bunch of fast stuff. But either way, it gives you a whole bunch of options as to what RHM can kind of move around, just cover the IS-3s. He also has view range down here, so if they come around the cliffside, you'll know because this RHM will be full. Shoot right down the cliffside. But basically, it's all about finding. Strats are all about finding what people are doing and then just reacting accordingly to it. So if they have a whole bunch of heavy tanks, you can just run scouts down through here and up, and the scout will find out, if they're coming down up here. If you don't see anything coming up here as soon as this guy gets here, then you pretty much know that they're pushing down here with their heavy tanks, and then these IS-3s can kind of come over this way to fight with the heavy tanks, or you can just post them up on the corners, like around the bend here, and then this RHM just gets shots in here, and then you just run a couple lightweights into their cap, and then of course they have to pull. They're forced back to go cap, probably like 2 enough to cause pressure, and they'll pull tanks back to go push, and then you'll have an overmatch with tanks here, and then you just run to them. It's all about, strategies are all about creating the opportunity to basically ruin the other person's strat. Like if you're ever reacting to what they're having to do half the time, without it kind of being in part of your plan, is basically them already being one step ahead of you. And all strategies are for maps are just basically like getting them to do what you want and setting it up, and just having a strat so you can react to different things. Of course, it takes, you might lose depending on if people trade properly or things like that, or people listening to calls is all a huge part in it. However, it's largely just dependent on how you react to what your enemy's doing.
We don't have a lot of T-54 lightweights. What else could we use?
Maybe a 1390, but T-54 lightweights are like the optimal scout because it's got the most health, and it's actually got bouncy armor, and it can actually haul down as a light tank. And if you encounter like a 1390, if you ram a 1390 and then shoot, dies immediately. RUs can be used. I mean, all the other light tanks can be used, but the T-54 lightweight is just overall the best light tank by far. So that's a priority kind of tier 8 tank to get. Same with like IS-3s, 5100s, 32 Pershings, like that. They all get used quite a bit.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Are there any other maps they kind of want a general idea?
Fisherman's Bay. We had that on our list.
Oh, okay.
Those ARL players need to be getting that 54 lightweight.
Okay. Fisherman's Bay is another kind of reactionary strat, but basically it's a common meta is to push a bunch of heavies up into the middle here, and then have light tanks and stuff kind of flank around the outsides up the ridges to get rear shots on the heavies. The only problem is while you do that, if their heavies push over, you kind of get stranded with the light tanks being in the fight. So it's really important that you you want to maintain vision like down this line, the middle, and that's pretty much it. Each battle for both teams, you kind of want to have an idea of what's here and what's down here and down here. So typically you kind of just push a lot of IS-3s up here, and then you can just like CD down the sides, or T-54 lightweights or 1390s, and just play around a flank in the middle. If they have
User joined your
TDs,
channel.
no, they're pretty much always camping back here on this side, or they might be along the ridge here, but that's highly unusual. Way better protected over here. And for TDs on this side, they're either like back here, or along this ridge line. But if that's the case, usually you just want enough heavies, a big chunk of heavies, so that you can kind of take control of the mid, and then probably about 4 light tanks or so. And then that way you can just put like 1 tank over here, just quick check down this line. If you're green, run your tank straight to here, and you'll kind of playing this area, or run it right up to the ridge over here, be able to see down this line, and then you can back off. But basically a bunch of IS-3s or T-32s up here works really well. And then you just want to know, like, if they're playing this side, then you got to kind of play this side, because if all their heavies are over here, then usually they control it. So if you push your heavies like over here, then just kind of take a whole bunch of light tanks this way. You can set them up in behind over here. Then you can have like 1 light tank, kind of check this line to see down here. And then you just push your heavies out and over this way, and then your light tanks just come over and get on cap. And then that forces them to have to come back and deal with your... this light tank can just run away this way if they push that side out to here and just be a base reset guy. But it always leaves your options open. I wouldn't use like an artillery piece. It's kind of... people don't really camp on this map at all. So it'll just kind of be useless for the most part, unless Artie does a lot of damage. It's not a great option for the most time, unless people are going to camp, or they're like generally camp maps. Problem with like tier 8 and tier 6 is you don't have a whole lot of tanks to spare. 1 extra heavy tank in here can stop them from pushing with an overmatch, whereas if you have the heavy tanks here and an Artie sitting back here, you're gonna lob 1 shot in and then be reloading forever. These guys are then gonna die, and then he kind of gets stuck down here, and he's now. Whereas if you have the extra heavy tank here, it can push over onto the side, get shots in between areas. It's an extra 1,000 hit points and armor that are in the game at all.
about a tier 6? How would you handle it with that tier?
Um, um, Tier 6, pretty much you take just a whole bunch of light tanks and probably just run them up to the middle. Light tanks are good. You can have Cromwells for those that don't have light tanks, but light tanks are great because they have camo. And this is a map where camo applies pretty well. Have like one tank kind of come out here to watch down this line, push everybody else up into the middle, and if they're there, they're there. If they're not, you just back down, or you can just you don't see him right here and he doesn't see him down this line, then you know they're either camping in the backs along here or out in this route, and then you can just take all your tanks and you can either push down here and up over into cap or push away. It's up to you, but it's the light tanks give you a lot of vision and mobility. And then basically you can have, tank run across the back from here. If you all your light tanks up this way, and you haven't seen them come down the one line, you don't see them here, you just push your big force out to here, and then you can kind of check this area, then you just push all of them up this way, and then leave a couple in this bush back here, then one tank out to here, and then he'll be like your proxy spotter and lighter up here, while the rest just hide back here and try snipe at all these guys. Because that's where they'll all be if you haven't spotted them by then. They end up just pushing down this way. You just take probably like 2 tanks. You just drive them right across the middle. Depending on how much you spot, like if you spot their whole team, then you take at least 2 tanks, drive them across the middle. If you spot all but one, if it's not a TD or something like that, or like an OI, then you tanks into here. You just want to have an overmatch if you go push 2 tanks to here. 1 tank is never enough on cap. 2 tanks is good. 3 tanks is really good if you think you're going to cap out without them being able to get back. However, that 3rd tank can always act as a better screen than a capper. So typically 2 tanks on cap is enough pressure. Guy will spot them coming down this way, and then the rest of the tanks can just run up to the ridge, and you can shoot them down in the ridge line from where they are while the 2 are on cap. Make sure that if there's anyone back here, that those tanks just run up and kill it, and then this guy can just run this way. Those 2 will be on cap, then they'll just start turning around and running back, and then by the time these guys have dealt with that tank, then they're just running across into the open to get resets at these guys, and then these guys just pick them off that entire time. And if none of them keep pushing this way, the guy that just kind of runs away can just run back over into the middle here. We'll have shots at the same time too. And then it works from the other side as well. You can always push down this way along this ridge. If they're camping over here, it's a little harder to break, and a little harder to push down this way because they can camp along these lines. But you just push a bunch of tanks up to here, and you have a tank sitting back here, and you'll spot anything a long time before it makes it to you coming across. And then if nothing, you can just pull a bunch of tanks down this way along the side, and then 1 tank can just come over and use the line to push up, and then all these guys over here will just shoot at what's over here if any of it's kind of visible and lit, and then this guy can kind of move up carefully down this line and bridge to shoot over the way. But basically, like tier 6, you just want to have enough distance so that you can't, like, a single guy pushing in doesn't get like all of them group up and then push on him and kill him. That's what causes you to lose. It's like you get 1 guy coming out this way sitting here, and then everyone back here sniping. So that way if this guy gets pushed on, they're just driving into side shots the entire time for this group. And they're left in the open, and you guys have cover and a ridge, and generally they might not spot you from here because you'll be using signal range, so you'll get free damage the entire time. So it's just really important that you set up things like that. So if at least one guy's going to push on, it's always going to work in your favor because you have cover from here. Never want to split off like your scout tank and push them like right up to this ledge here without knowing where they are in this area, because then as soon as he spots them, they might just be sitting right here and then push over and kill him, and then you just waste a tank. That's pretty much the trick to tier 6, is just if you have a whole bunch of light tanks, you take them, or Cromwells, and then you just play the vision game, because T-37s are the best light tank because they have the best accuracy and hit points ability for his tier, and good view range and stuff, and really good accuracy on the move. Nice, so your shots hit a lot of the time, and a good gold round for penning. But basically, it's just kind of push in. Like, that's how all the good clans defeat clans at camp, is you just slowly eliminate the map through vision control, and then when you find out where they are, you just one tank to kind of light them all while everyone covers that tank. And then if they ever try to come out to kill it, they die because all these guys will kill it. And then all you do is you just take this tank can just kind of sit here, work his way along the ridge, the inside of the ridge, and then you can probably put tanks on cap, and then the rest still stay back here sniping, and then it forces them to kind of come out. This guy can probably pull back and come to cap. Whatever works, but or you can leave them here. It doesn't make that big of a difference. The only thing is these guys on cap won't have cover, so they shouldn't fire. If they end up charging all their tanks down in, then you just have all these guys shoot, and the guys on cap can continue shooting. But these guys on cap, you're better off just driving up to this ridge while they're shooting, so then they have cover behind these rocks and stuff. But then you force them out of this turtle and into the open, and the entire time these guys are going to be shooting, and then this guy is just trying to stay alive the entire time. If you know they have like big tanks like OIs and all that stuff, then you'll definitely want to kind of pull a lot of your light stuff, this guy like out and over to cap, and then you'll just park like 1 to 2 tanks on cap, the very edge. And then as soon as like everybody else can kind of sit back here, then they'll have to charge something out to go light it, and you guys will spot it because it's moving and you're stationary, and hopefully you're in cover with a couple bushes that are on cap, and then as soon as it gets close enough, you just start running off cap, and then all these guys shoot and kill that tank, and then whoever they had for the vision that's fast dies, and then you just take those 2 tanks and put them back on cap, and now they're 1 tank down, and they have to do it again, otherwise they lose, forcing their hand. That's if you know they have a whole bunch of slow tanks, because then they're not going to fast cap you anytime soon. But it's always good to have that like opposite scout, kind of sitting out this way or something like that, just in case from the start of the game, they kind of push their heavy tanks here, and then the entire time you're playing with this, trying to bait them out. If you take a really long time to do it, they might have pushed heavy tanks down here, gone to your base. If you don't have anyone watching, it gets really quiet for a while, and then all these guys won't make it back if they put 3 on time. Redoing my any other maps?
The only other one we got down here is Fjords.
Fjords, okay.
It's one thing. I remember you said on the first map, Cliff, that you would run a lot of Cromwells and 1 light, and on that map you'd run a lot of lights. What if you're just running skirmishes and you don't know what the map's going to be?
Preferably like a mix of both. Cromwells, light tanks. It doesn't really matter that much. If you're gonna run into them, all you need to know is that like Cromwells will win that engagement. A bunch of light tanks because Cromwells have higher alpha damage and more hit points. So they get basically like an extra 70 at tier, at least one shot every time, and tanks die really fast at that tier, and the Cromwell has a chance of bouncing on top of that. So, and if they ram you, it's their trade, so basically it's just roll. If you have the lights, you can still run out and trade, but it's just you got to be a little more cautious when moving. And then
Connection lost.
coming up this way, then they're not pressing that way, then you can push tank out to here, check across here. If they hit your caps, so what? You're sitting right here. You'll just, and they ran this way and your cap doesn't make a big deal. Have a bunch of your tanks push back this way. Depending on how many they have on cap, if they have 2, 3 on cap, you just put tanks here and 1 or 2 tanks around out to the side along this ridge where there's cover, and they'll just get the resets, and then these guys can just work killing this group. Or you can just dive bomb down off the side and come up this way. Either or works. But generally, you just kind of sit here for a second. If you don't see anything coming up this way, then you just run the 1 tank to here, and you'll probably spot them crossing here. I'd probably you just sit along this ridge for maybe 5 seconds, because then you'll know if they're coming up this way or not by the time you kind of make it to this area. And then this guy can immediately go here. You'll probably spot whoever's running back there. And then if neither of that's happening, they might be running down this way, which nobody really does, but it happens. Or they're probably playing up in the hill or camping along here in base. And then you just have light tanks. You'd probably push one of your light tanks, come out and check this corner, peek around here. You don't see them camping along this edge or anywhere in here. You just kind of
User joined your channel.
Have 1 tank kind of come back here and check base quickly and make sure they're not kind of running back this way. Then he can come back and join these guys. Guy can just explore down through here. Want to be careful if they have all Cromwells coming up the way about what you do with light tanks here. You just put 1 light tank here. Push the rest of the light tanks, kind of down to this corner. 1 light tank running up this ridge. He'll spot if people are here. This guy will spot if they come out this way. And then you have all your tanks right here ready to go, and he can just run right this way to the entire group if they end up pushing this way. And then all of them can just get on cap, and you can park people around the corner here, and then you'll have the preemptive strike with the building cover over here. And these guys can kind of be back over here near the edge of cap, so they have to wrap all the way around to get you. And then you can always leave. It's best to leave 1 tank kind of down into this area, or maybe 2. But whenever you trigger cap or something like that, if they end up kind of doing this, they might run back down this way. So it's best to kind of have a couple tanks in both spots, so when they run back, they're driving into a pincer, because now you have shots from both sides into them, and they have to turn to face both ways. They can't just go to this group and then up to this group, getting shot in the ass the entire time. They'll kind of panic and split off. But by then you'll have won the HP war. Just you have to be really careful if they have a full team of Cromwells and you have a light tanks, that you don't run straight into an engagement and nobody rams. If they try to ram you, you have to avoid it at all costs, because it's never going to work in your favor. It's just you're gonna take the brunt of it, and It's basically like the same thing as getting focus fired. It's just you're gonna lose the majority of your health and die. The only time it would be a good option is if you have like 80 hit points or something, and his next shot's gonna kill you, and he's trying to ram you. You might as well just let him ram you, unless you can kill him before he gets to you, because you're gonna get more damage out of the ram on him than your next shot, anyways. Both, like if you can fire in the next time, go ahead, but then if you just let him ram you, he'll probably take 200 plus damage when he could have just not rammed you and shot you and taken none, kind of deal, or let you shoot you. He would have only taken about 115. Those are kind of exceptions where you play the numbers game.
How do you feel about the Type 64 as a light?
It's basically a weaker version of the T-37 in like every area. It's got slightly better DPM, and it's slightly faster with slightly better camo, I think, and it's got a tiny bit better view range, but none of that adds up to how good the T-37's gun is compared to the Type 64. The Type 64's gun is like absolute crap. Yeah, it's got 5 more meters range, so that doesn't make a difference, but major difference is like the pen. Type 64's standard pen is only 1.8, or its gold shell of 177, but the T-37 has standard 150 and a gold pen of 199, so you're a lot more likely to pen gold shells and your standard shells, and its accuracy on the move and stationary and its aim time are all way, way, way better than the Type 64s. Which is a huge difference because you can just auto aim and fire on the move with the 7 and still land like 80% of your shots. With the Type 64, you only land like maybe 40% of those. Like a near maxed out crew. But my game's done updating and stuff now.
Alright. I'll send out some more invites to the training room.